I finally put some records up on the wall here, and eventually I'm gonna like tile up a bunch of them so this wall looks super cool and full of music and stuff. And to answer the question you're all thinking, no, I have not listened to this music. I haven't even Googled it or anything. This could be absolute trash. But eventually, when I get a record player to actually listen to it, which will be one day, I promise, I'm planning on sampling some of this. Okay, so this wall is not gonna be completely useless. And it's got a use, right? It's gonna look cool, and I do music stuff. So, you know, don't come for me, okay? Anyway, for this video, I'm gonna be showing you guys a new vocal chain. It's using a bunch of Waves plugins, and they're all gonna be linked in the description with affiliate links. So if you do plan on copying those plugins, I would really appreciate it if you use those links. But this vocal chain should theoretically, if you're using a decent mic, not like some Apple earbuds or something, this should automatically work for every person's voice and mic. It'll make more sense when I actually, show you the plugins. But you can see here on the left, it's just Autotune, Gregwell's MixCentric, and Gregwell's MixCentric, Fresh Air, which is actually a free plugin, F6, which is just a simple EQ, a Deesser, a delay, and a reverb. Now it's very, very simple, very minimal. This is a great base to start for just anyone who's not familiar with mixing and they have some money to drop on plugins. Once you record some vocals, you're just gonna start off with Autotune like you normally would. Like Autotune, if you plan on using it, should always be the first thing in your chain. After that, I go ahead and throw on Gregwell's MixCentric. This is essentially just a one knob plugin that mixes EQing, compression, reverb all into one. You just crank this knob up or down depending on how much you want the mix to do. I cranked it all the way to 100% because I thought it sounded really good at that point. You can also go ahead and use his reverb, doubler, or delay, but I find this actually just makes it worse. You don't get as much customization as you do when you actually add those plugins at the end of your chain. Then we got Gregwell's MixCentric. Now this plugin can be used in the case that I'm using it right now, where you throw it on one layer and you just crank it up to wherever. Again, I used it at 100%, but this is usually meant for your master. So if you have a tough time mastering your songs, this is actually a really, really easy to use plugin that helps you master. You usually only need to crank this up to like 10 or 20% and it'll do a really good job of mastering your song. But this plugin is again doing some back-end mixing with like EQs, limiter, a little bit of compression, some boosts in your lows, as well as some notch filtering, I believe. But those two plugins alone do so much for the mix. They're essentially just automated plugins based off of your recording. So if your voice comes in with a lot of low end, it is going to give a much heavier boost in the high end than if you already have a pretty high end boost. Now those two plugins alone don't do enough in the high end for me, so I ended up actually throwing on Fresh Air. I boosted them at just an even amount in the mid air and the high air. If you ask me, this mid dial doesn't really boost much of the mids, it's actually more of the mid highs. And so this just adds a little bit more clarity for my voice, especially in the type of delivery that I have on these recordings. Don't worry, I'm gonna show you what I recorded as well as what it sounds like with and without the vocal chain, but I just wanna go through all the effects first. After that, I have an F6 EQ to just cut all of the lows off. So these automated plugins here, they don't actually cut the lows completely out. In your vocals, you pretty much wanna cut them at a certain point, mostly so they don't interfere with any bass lines or anything. You can use pretty much any EQ for that. You don't need to get the F6 one specifically, but it is a really nice EQ. Then after that, I got a Deesser. I changed the mode to wide, which just always sounds better. Threshold is set to -17, and this gets rid of all the harsh S sounds. Then we got a simple delay. If you're familiar with my channel, you know I'm an absolute avid connoisseur for H delay. This is my absolute favorite delay and it works on every single project, I promise you that. These are the settings that I got going on here. Dry wet at 8, feedback at 50. I have it on a half note, ping ponging, BPM set to the song, and that's it. Then the last thing in the vocal chain is a reverb, which I'm using Manny M reverb. Shout out to my boy Caves for telling me to use this one because this is actually my favorite reverb now. I turned the time up to 128%. I left it on hull and medium. I keep the reverb amount to 100%, and then I adjust the dry wet scale down here. That's pretty much all I did. I set it to 5%, so it's just slightly softer, but those are pretty much what keep the excitement and flow of the vocals. And then for some reason, after I used the MixCentric and MixCentric plugin, it sounded like my vocals were slightly panned to the right. So I actually panned the whole layer just 4% to the left. I don't know why, don't ask me. I don't know if that's gonna happen with every recording or if that's just those plugins messing up this one time. I have no idea. So here's what the vocals sound like with absolutely no effects.
It's no wonder I'm doing good nowadays.
Ooh.
I got a love that ain't gonna run away.
Ooh.
There's a trust by my side that I know ain't gonna fade.
So yeah, I mean, of course there's no effects. I haven't tuned the vocals, like there's probably some parts in there that are definitely off key, but it's a pretty soft recording, right? There's a lot of mid to low end pickup, not a lot of high end boost. So I definitely need to bring some excitement to the mix. So when I turn all of these on, this is what it sounds like.
It's no wonder I'm doing good nowadays. I got a love that ain't gonna run away. There's a trust by my side that I know ain't gonna fade.
Honestly think it sounds pretty good. It's giving me sort of that Drake vibe from his latest album. Now that is going to depend on how much you crank up the voice-centric and MixCentric plugin, as well as how much fresh air and how much low end you're cutting out. But this theoretically is the easiest vocal chain that you could possibly have. I mean, you just go into each one and just adjust knobs up and down. And I don't mean like a million knobs, just one for each plugin. Super easy. If you got other cool plugins you want to throw on this, of course you can do that. Just make sure that you keep the reverb and delay at the end of the chain. So yeah, pretty simple tutorial. If you did enjoy, leave a like. Anyways guys, it's been your boy MMXVII, and I'm out. Peace.